So we can start, I think. Thank you all for coming to the first seminar of Michael's term in the Matters in Question, Epistemologies of Gender and Sexuality seminar series. Just a few words before we start. I'm delighted that this is our second year running the series at the Center for Gender Studies here at Cambridge. I think that we have managed to create a safe space for discussing methods in gender and sexuality studies that speak to contemporary political concerns. We have covered significant ground already, from Palestine to Kurdish women's movement. We have also hosted seminars critically engaging with LGBT+ histories in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. I'm personally very happy to bring together such diverse research and methodological approaches that are cognizant of different historicities and of their own positionalities. From this series' point of view, academia has to be critical, and it always is political. So we need to foster spaces where we bring together knowledge produced by different struggles to help shape our own knowledge production. There's a sheet you can add your name and email address to if you wish to receive news from the seminar series. And please feel free to take a term card there, you will find it. Also, please visit our website, www.mattsinquestion.co.uk, and maybe subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without taking too much more time, I'd like to introduce our speaker, who has done such an incredible job in combining activism and academic research. Professor Dibyesh Anand is the head of the School of Social Sciences at the University of Westminster in London. A professor of international relations, he is the author of the monographs Geopolitical Exotica, Tibet in Western Imagination, and Hindu Nationalism in India, and the Politics of Fear, and has spoken about and published on varied topics including Tibet, China-India border dispute, Hindu nationalism and Islamophobia in India, and the colonial occupation in Kashmir. He is also the chairperson for Westminster BME Staff Network. He identifies as queer in personal and political terms. So please join me in welcoming Professor.
Thank you, Hakan, for having me here. I've known him for 1.5 years, and I knew him through his article. I don't know what the article was, except that it was very good. So whenever I see an article that's written by someone I don't know, I generally search for the author. And unless they're very arrogant, pompous people, and you can guess whether they're arrogant or pompous or not, I write to them and thank them for the work they do. That's how I got to know him. And therefore, it's good to meet him for the first time. And of course, his work on Kurdistan, I followed that to an extent, the Kurdish issue, Turkey, queer phobia, queer movement. I looked at that and the kind of interest I have, so I could see the similarities there, right? So the topic here is largely the title to see queering contemporary coloniality, India and Kashmir. So most of the images are taken by me, unless I tell you they are not taken by me, right? So now this one, for instance, you can see it's a bus with police. Now this is what the paramilitary or police use. So they have to cover themselves because they fear being pelted with stones. Now, and this Kashmir bridge, again, this is a graffiti there. When we study politics and international relations, we study sovereignty. And broadly speaking, we study sovereignty of different kinds. And what is sovereignty? Sovereignty is essentially normalization of dominance and control. So in post-colonial world, the idea is all different people, different nations have their own sovereignty. Right? So they can now exercise dominance and control over their own territory and population. Right? So sovereignty, therefore, is essentially about not freedom, it is dominance and control. And I want you to remember that again and again. It's about dominance and control. And how in contemporary post-colonial times, the idea would be China or Turkey or India or Pakistan or Nigeria, they have been victims of colonization in the past. They have asserted themselves now, and therefore they're proudly post-colonial. Right? And through my own work, what I highlight is that there's nothing post-colonial about them because they're very much colonial. Right? So there's very much a continuity. When I say continuity, I do not mean that, for instance, India is essentially, there's a remnant of British colonialism in India. In fact, if you look at Indian colonization in Kashmir, it's not about remnant of British colonialism, it's about originary Indian colonization. And this is important to bear in mind because even in the West, even in the left circle, the Marxist circle, when we talk of empire, imperialism, and I did an article a few years ago, it was called Post-Colonial Informal Empires, China and India. I looked at Tibet and Kashmir, so relation of China with Tibet and India with Kashmir. In that, I surveyed a lot of literature on Marxism and imperialism and colonization in recent times. Almost no one talks of Indian or Chinese colonization. They only talk of Western colonization or American colonization. And the response from the referee at the beginning, and also response from other, let's say, left comrades always was, but they can't really be colonial. They're victims of colonization, or they're just copying us. There was almost a sense that, let me put it bluntly, that only white people can be racist and only white people can be colonial, and of course the non-white people, even if they're colonial, they're just copying us. And taking away even the agency of the non-white people to be colonizers themselves. That's how I saw it, right? So while being critical, adequately critical of their own subjectivity, they were quite patronizing about the subjectivity of the colonizing others. I say colonizing others, not the colonized others. That's how I saw it, right? So I did that. There's another article out on Xinjiang and Tibet, how China is colonial. What do we do in academia? You have to always temper yourself down, right? So you'll be asked, no, this is too radical, this is too radical. Use the word, don't use this term, use that term. We find ways of expressing ourselves. So I meant colonization, but I called it post-colonial informal empire, not formal, right? Because the referees would keep saying, no, it's not colonization. So I had to say it's informal empire, not formal empire. But by later stage, of course, I said it's a colonization. So now I can get away with it, right? So a lot of time when you're doing your PhD, I don't know who of you are doing your PhD, you'll be under a lot of pressure to say, what methodology are you using? And I find the method and methodological skill to be very interesting, not because it's interesting, because it's often used, when I haven't read your work, I don't know what you're doing, I just say, what's your methodology? And then question your methodology. So this is what I found a lot of time. A digression. Hindu nationalism. My book did a work on how Hindu nationalists in India, they imagine the Muslims, right? So the work involved a lot of research with Hindu nationalists themselves. So I spent time with them, the right-wing activists. Now, if I had gone with properly prepared questions, with properly ethics form, I would not get anything done. And that's a fact. And I did research a long time ago, therefore I could get away with it. But if I'd gone and said, so tell me, how do you imagine Muslim mother? Do you like the fact that Muslim women are raped or Muslim men are raped or killed? No, you do not get answers. You go out and have conversation and then you get most of the answers. So if I followed strictly the kind of thing that you have to do when you're doing your PhD, when I had to do my PhD, you get depoliticized often. And that's the challenge you face, right? And coming back to the Kashmir. Now you can ask questions around Hindu nationalism later if you want to, they're all connected. So the way I see is, my interest is the colonial order in contemporary times. In particular, the focus is on China and India. Because they are the two large emerging powers that see themselves as with vengeance, post-colonial, anti-colonial, and therefore any criticism of them is seen as a remnant of Western colonization, right? Now, so in case of Kashmir, of course, Kashmir is seen as a dispute between India and Pakistan. So the common story is around sovereignty talk, dominance, there's a dominance of strategic and sacrality register. Basically that it's integral part of India, it's integral part of Pakistan, they'll fight over it. It's about sovereignty. So what India and Pakistan do, and they more or less agree on it, they'll reduce Kashmir to be a conflict over property. It belongs to India or it belongs to Pakistan, right? It's a proprietorial thing. And the idea of sacrality that you can't question it, right? So, for instance, the Indians, in particular, I'm focusing more on India, right? India would say that, look, it is about love, we love it. And the Prime Minister Modi, he says every Indian loves Kashmir. He keeps repeating it. It's almost always we love Kashmir, not Kashmiris. So ideal situation for them would be a Kashmir without Kashmiris. Because then they can love it better, right? So the imagination would be, and this is a real picture, it is a beautiful place, but imagination is of a beautiful place with bad people, or the liberals would say, a beautiful place with misguided people, or beautiful place with victimized people, but victimized by whom? Not by the Indian state. That has 800,000 paramilitary and military there, that has killed more than 80,000 people, that has, and this is the documented part, right? Undocumented we do not know. That has disappeared between 8 to 10,000 Kashmiris. There's cases of mass rape, cases of sexual violence, torture, mass blinding, right? They would say they're not victims of Indian state, they're victims of Pakistan and Islamists, right? So ultimately, Kashmir Valley, which is Muslim majority, is seen as misled by Pakistan and therefore the victims of Pakistani machinations and proxy war, right? Reality, it's a full state. I'll give you an example. It's the world's most militarized zone. Now, I've traveled to Palestine. I've traveled across the border, the wall and everything. And Tel Aviv airport wasn't very pleasant, especially when, imagine this years ago. I traveled there and I was the only, it was British Airways flight and 3 people came inside the plane when we landed and asked me to stay back, right? Now, I do not have a Muslim name. Now, I have no connection to being a Muslim. I have no connection to Palestine as such, right? At that point in time, Facebook did not really exist when I went. So, and yet they stopped me, right? And then it was a very polite, however, very polite question, why are you here? I was giving a talk on Tibet and China at Hebrew University at that point in time. But they stopped me with that course, and I could see my names looked different compared to most other names, right? And yet, the visceral experience of being in militarized zone, I would say there was no comparison in my experience between Palestine and Kashmir. At every stage you find that, right? That's what I thought it is a holistic, right? So there's a contrast between India loving it and running a holistic. Now, sexuality question. Of course, I'm assuming this is the advantage of speaking to people who already pay attention to it. I don't know to go into detail and explain that, look, this is what gay means, this is what LGBTQ means, and this is what queer means, right? I don't have to do that. Now, sexuality, in a sense, this is not from me, it's from internet somewhere, this thing, right? Sexuality, but identity, desire, expression. Now, why do I say? Because sovereignty is about dominance and control. And queer identity and expression for me would be subversion of that dominance and control. So the way I would see is queer politics, queer identity, queer expressions are those that are essentially anti-sovereignty. Right? So that's what I would ask you to bear in mind. So my own interest is about queering post-coloniality, which you could say even coloniality, because post-colonial is largely colonial. And the how question, which you said, there's a how question here. The how question is, how do we do it? There's no clear answer. I don't have an answer how you do queer anything. But I do understand that, for instance, when we challenge pink washing, when we challenge homo-nationalism, a lot of us do it. It's important to do it. But that should not come at a cost of ignoring the fact that there are tangible oppressions, discriminations, and dehumanizations taking place in different parts of the world. So for instance, let's take example of Uganda. A lot of time, when as queer activists or academics, we say, oh, we are against pink washing and homo-nationalism, and what's happening in Uganda, we need to look at American Evangelical Church and their role. Of course we have to look at that, no doubt. But let's not take away the agency from the Ugandan elite, also who are doing it. So what the critique of homo-nationalism sometimes does, and I do find, I'm not worked in great detail by the way, but with Jasbir Puar's work and the use of that work by many, I almost feel uncomfortable. And the discomfort I have is almost that, look, again, those homophobes, queer phobes, we can't blame them, of course, because we are the ones who imposed criminalization. We are the ones who did bad things, and we are the ones who are funding it through church network or whatever. And therefore, anyway, taking away their agency of being actually queer phobe. It goes back to what I was saying in terms of left and the way it looks at empire. So it's important that when you look at the how question, there's no clear answer, but it is about constant politicization. There's no way in which we can be queer without being political. There's no way in which we can be queer without being critical. There's no way in which we can be queer without being subversive. So whatever methods, whatever methodologies, be it ethnography or theoretical, we can deploy, we need to deploy so long as we are driven by the question. So for me, it has never been about method and methodology. I know it's a methods thing, but it's about being driven by the question. It's being eclectic, being humble enough to know that you don't get the answer, but also not being driven by methods and methodology. That's important for me, right? So it does involve, what would querying postcolonial involve? Would be querying the self. It's important that we queer ourselves. Now, of course, there's always a risk when we talk of queer that, oh, can queer exist without sexuality? And a lot of time there would be, let's say, there can be an imperative or tendency amongst us to say, okay, fine, let's not focus on sexuality part, let's use the word queer as a critical. So let's critically, so it becomes a byword for critical. I would say no. Queer has an essential element of sexuality and we must not give up on it. Because of course people have been killed and people have died in the name of fight for recognition, right? So that's important for that we do that. It does require queering ourselves, which implies, that doesn't imply being visible, by the way. Again, we have to respect people's political visibility, invisibility, and we should never judge people who are not visible, right? But queering the self would require essentially questioning oneself, recognizing the kind of privileges we inhabit, the kind of discriminations we have experienced, and not being silent about it as much as possible while being aware of the context. So for instance, if I go to a gathering where I know it's all queer folks and I can be threatened, I'm not going to say, okay, I'm queer or whatever, right? So one has to be mindful of the context. But queering the self is very crucial. It's about questioning oneself, it's about thinking. It's also about, and this is where research becomes relevant, in a way, you know, it does, okay. Have you ever read any work which is ethnography of the university? Generally, what would happen is, you see ethnographies of the powerless rather than the powerful. That's a general tendency. You can get a lot of ethnography of the working class, of the minorities, but almost never ethnography of the queen or the royal family, because you don't get access, that's number one, right? And number two, of course, they're powerful. So, now into the universities are, they're weird places. They're weird places because they have a universalist ethos, a radical ethos, a critical ethos. Not that Cambridge is radical, but in at least our university is more radical than yours, right? We have that, and that's true, right? Otherwise, imagine me, and you can set my politics, and I'm head of school, right? And my vice chancellor does always support me whenever I get abused and trolled from all sides, right? Now, why do you say? Until and unless, I'm not talking of you as PhD students because you are in precarious situation, but until and unless we as academics who do not identify as queer, feminist, radical, left, whatever, until unless we also question the power play within our institutions, we are not queer, in my sense of queer politics. What I mean is, it's easy to study power relation outside. It's more difficult but equally important to actually look at power relation within our own family, within our own setup. So therefore this whole idea of the field, I'm going for field work, it has to be challenged. Because as queers, our body is our field, and the field is there. So there's no difference, I would say, between the house and the field, right? So it's important that we challenge power relation even wherever we are, right? So it's about querying the self, querying the workplace, the family. It's about querying the nation, which is, and I would go back to Virginia Woolf when she said, as a woman, I have no nation. I mean, the fact is, nation-statism is the biggest, it's the most important ideology of political expression today. But nation-statism is also the most violent ideology today, right? More people have been killed and died in the name of nation-state than anything else. So we have to understand that if we accept the principle of nation-statism in a solid form, then we are accepting the principle of the self and the other, where the self is a normal self and the other is the deviant other. And for those of us who have experienced the toxicity and violence of heteronormativity, we know what it means. So in a way, we have to use our own identities to challenge that. Right? So the way in which heteronormativity can be toxic and violent, we have to understand the normativity of nation states. So we need to queer the nation. We need to decolonize the state of mind. I said decolonize thought, decolonize thinking. I'm using my own examples here, but important thing with decolonizing the state of the mind is, like in my case, I'm not Kashmiri. I don't speak for Kashmiris. I can speak with Kashmiris. I can try to provide them platform, use my privilege as a professor, a head or whatever, to provide platform, to raise issues, but not go silent. No, there's a dilemma. You could say, but I'm an Indian by origin, by the way. So I have a colonized identity, not the colonial identity, rather than the colonized identity. The tendency is, okay, who am I to say anything? I should just keep quiet, right, out of humility. But then, the platform that I can provide using my position will not be provided. So we have to bear in mind that it's a constant negotiation. There's no clear answer, right? Ideally, it should be a Kashmiri person. But I do not believe in of certain kind of identity politics that I cannot speak at all. So long as I do not speak for them, I speak with them or speak about them, or therefore I say it's about, my focus is not on Kashmir, my focus is on critique of colonial state, right? Indian state, right? Now, but it also involves not only speaking about rights movement and rights self-determination, but it's also about decolonizing the mind of the state, to challenge the state. So as queers, we need to challenge this nation state. That's very important, right? So all of that, right? Coloniality, I hope there's no class after this. Coloniality. But why do I use the word coloniality? Coloniality essentially is what? Denial of sovereignty to the other in the name of the sovereignty of the superior self, right? So I have sovereignty over you, the collective, therefore you cannot have sovereignty. Now, that's coloniality. Coloniality is about, these are sort of broad ideas of colonialism. Asymmetric relation of power. We are different people, we are never equal. It's about paternalism. You're not fit to govern yourself, therefore I'll govern you for your benefit. It is about territorial control, it's about control over bodies and people. It has knowledge production, Edward Said, you know, in postcolonial theory, knowledge production. It's about economic exploitation, cultural subservience, racialization, ethnicization, religion, this other, that they're too religious, they're not religious enough, they're too backward, not backward, whatever, right? It's about social transformation, militarization, violence. Generally, colonization is seen as violence, but violence is a very small part of it. Essentially, paternalism. What defines the relation of coloniality is violence and paternalism both, right? That's how it is. It's about civilizing mission. So when we look at Kashmir in India, so India in Kashmir, we find all these elements of colonialism existing. All these elements, not a single one is existing. It's not therefore a case of neo-colonialism. It's a very much case of full-fledged colonization. So where we have a situation where India sees itself as a victim of Western colonization, the British one, then say we had anti-colonial nationalism, and the idea our sovereign state must not be questioned. It means that aapki azadi ke prahari, to be a defenders of your freedom. This is military in Kashmir. So if Kashmiris ask for azadi, freedom, they get killed or imprisoned. When the only military can use the word azadi, saying we are defenders of your azadi, but essentially the colonizer saying we are defenders of your freedom. This reminds you of the Turkish invasion in Syria now, where they're talking about being the peace spring, Operation Peace Spring, right? So they were bringing peace. Then we also know what the Americans did in Iraq, and that's what colonizers always do. They always use good terms, right? The idea is, even the map, remember, this is the map of India, okay, forget everything is imagined cartographically. But even legally, this is not right. Okay, legally, this is right from Indian side. This is Pakistan controlled, Indian controlled, and Chinese controlled. But you cannot show reality in India. If you have Economist magazine or you publish a book with real geographical map, your book will be banned. Right? So the idea is even map has to be controlled. It is about asymmetry of power, patriarchal proprietorship, right? So the idea is state of Jammu and Kashmir. By the way, the statehood is gone now, but because India has completely annexed Kashmir now. It is and shall be an integral part of the Union of India. Right? It's always there. Whether Kashmir is wanted or not, that's not immaterial. That's a patriarchal relation, right? That's a proprietorial reaction. India, unlike China, which uses the idea of liberation and communism, India uses the idea of democracy. We are world's largest democracy, therefore if we control you, you should be happy. Right? So it's a political issue of democracy, and therefore, any time when Kashmiris will vote, Indian media and Indian government say, look, they're voting which they want us. If they don't vote, they say they're fearful of people. Right? So India uses democracy until now, by the way, it's gone now more or less. It's cultural control. So the idea is cultural. There's a demographic change taking place in Kashmir now, and there's a threat it will happen. Hindi becomes a national language for everyone. There's a racialized knowledge production. You can look at, I don't have time, you can look at think tank production or Bollywood production or advertisement. All of it is about Kashmir being beautiful or dangerous, both, or combined both, right? So you've got racialized knowledge production. You have got a production of knowledge in media also. This is, by the way, liberal media. I'm not talking the right-wing media. Liberal media where all the time the idea is the soldiers are the defenders, the Kashmiri leaders are the nasty ones, and Kashmiri people are the innocent ones. So the role of Indian rule is to rescue ordinary innocent Kashmiris from their own brutal leaders. It should remind you of Napoleon when he goes to, when they go to Egypt, right? And they say, look, I'm here to defend you from your Ottoman tyrant. When the British went to Tibet in 1903, 1904, they invaded Tibet, by the way. So before China invaded Tibet, it was British who did it. Again, they said, we are here to rescue you from your tyrant ruler, the Dalai Lama. And this most people don't know that. Even they said Dalai Lama is a tyrant, and we are here to defend. What China did was, of course, use the exact language and then said, this is what Dalai Lama is, right? Knowledge progression. Development. Recently, on 5th of August, India has annexed Kashmir completely, removed autonomy, which was anyway de jure, not de facto. De facto in any way it had no autonomy, and it has also removed the statehood. So Kashmir has been converted into union territory, which means the police will no longer be under the province, but police will be under Delhi direct control. You can see why, because it asserts itself as a police state. They say we have done it for development, except they never take consent of people. So it's a development without consent of people. And you can see why the colonialism functions there. Now the only industry that flourishes in Kashmir is security industry. You have no option. If you want job, you need to join police or paramilitary. And if you join police and paramilitary for livelihood, then the Indian state will say, look, you're joining police and paramilitary, therefore you're pro-India. That's how it's operating, right? Now, there's a web of real virtual control. After since 5th of August, it's very clear that there's no internet in Kashmir at all. Certain phone lines have been allowed now, around 20 to 25% of phone lines. It's 78, 80 days now. No internet, nothing, right? And now imagine if it doesn't work for 2 minutes and we get restless, what kind of impact it's having, right? So there's a web of real control, virtual control of all kinds. There's whole politics of desire around it. So recently, after 5th of August, when India annexed, so leaders have been saying in India that now we, the men, can marry white-skinned Kashmiri women. The whole idea of appropriation of Kashmir is seen as beautiful, and the women are seen as the forbidden fruit for the Hindu nationalists. So the idea is now that the Hindu nation has conquered Kashmir, we can get the women, right? And these are by the MLAs and ministers who had said that. Now, violence, of course, is the integral part. I do not even need to go how it's part and parcel of colonization. It's epistemic violence, systemic violence, everyday violence, normalization violence, exceptional violence, right? So all kinds of violence, right? But they use democracy. Now, Indian state gets away with a lot of it because it's a democracy, world's largest democracy, right? So what they would say is, oh, we have got the court system. But, simple thing, let's say I'm a Kashmiri person, I get killed, then I can't go with it. Let's say I suffer, I get raped, I want to take, and I know who the rapist is, I want to take them to the court, right? So I go file FIR. Imagine if police allows me to file FIR, right? And I file FIR. The FIR says, fine, you need to get the culprit, call them in the court. I go to the court, somehow I fight all the hurdles, and go to the court. Court will say, produce the culprit, right? Alleged culprit. For that, you need permission. So you cannot, so the state, so the province, the police cannot get the army personnel in the court until unless they get permission from Ministry of Defense or Ministry of Home Affairs in Delhi, depending on whether it's military or paramilitary, right? So there are safeguards under Armed Forces Special Powers Act that Delhi can give permission for certain people who have been accused of human rights abuses to be prosecuted, right? That sounds just like, until today, zero permission has been granted. So they never give permission. So in theory, they can give permission, but they never give permission. So you're stuck in that situation. That's how it operates. Conan Pushpa is a case in 1991 of between 40 to 80 girls and women being raped. It was a case of mass rape. And the Indian media said, oh, there's no mass rape. There was no rape at all. In fact, and the person who did the report did it without speaking to a single person who had said they had been raped. So they went, spoke to the police, spoke to the military, and did the report. So that's how the crime gets whitewashed, right? Pellet blinding is there. It's very much about corporeal control over bodies. So enforced disappearance and killing, all of that is there. I'm not going to do it. And there are cases where, of course, someone has been hanged, and the body has never been returned, right? So that's how it operates. Pellet blinding is something that's generally, I guess, is very peculiar to Kashmir right now, which is a blind. So they use pellet guns, and they call it non-lethal weapon. But in this case, basically, okay, if you get pellets here and there, you may survive. But they usually target, especially with children, eyes to blind them. There's a case of mass blinding there. He's a person I've met. In fact, it was his photo that prompted me to go to Kashmir, right? Now, so the idea is basically, it's a colonial form of violence and control, and which is called democracy. So what happens is, you mask colonization by promoting nationalism. That you can't call Indian colonization, you have to call it Indian nationalism. So the moment you criticize it, you're anti-national. So any Indian who criticizes will be declared anti-national. If you're not an Indian, then you're declared as, you don't know what's going on kind of stuff, right? So this is very much a form of fascist fantasy. And when I say fascism, and there's another work I've done, again, I don't have time, you have to come for another lecture of mine on fascism. Hindu nationalism is fascism. It's about one leader, one party, one nation. There's a complete equation now, right? And the fantasy always is, and you think the government is brutal, but you find people on social media being more brutal. They say, kill everyone, right? And you find so many men, and often women, the Hindu nationalists, who are saying, let's kill more of them, because that will teach them lessons, right? So violence at the heart, in the periphery like Kashmir does, of course, is now taking place in Delhi also, in other places also. It's used to crush the dissent. What we find new in last couple of months is also pink washing. So this is a queer Hindu alliance. They said from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, that's Kashmir by the way, saffron is the Hindu nationalism, now India is one. Right? So imagine, a complete siege over Kashmir, annexation gets justified in the name of India is one. It was queer Hindu alliance, right? Now, a couple of you may know, most of you won't. We had an event at SWAS. It was on resisting fascism and solidarity with Kashmir, the SWAS. And we had 4 masked people who came with gay for JNK, gay for Jammu and Kashmir. They disrupted our meeting. And then a speaker asked them to sit and wait. And I said, well, I understand what you're talking about, gay rights, I'm myself queer and everything. They left. And they set off the fire alarm. But even while a session was going on, it was already on Indian television. It tells you that it was planted, right? So Indian television. And the story about that event was simply that a gay rights activists disrupt a closed-door Paki-sponsored meeting. Paki is Pakistan. By the way, it's not Pakistan, they call it Paki on Indian television. So we were all part of a closed-door meeting, which is anti-India and Paki-sponsored. And they identified people from the audience, some of you might be here, I don't know, but they identified and said Paki. Right? And you could see the risk that poses for people when they go to India. That some of them were Kashmiri. In fact, none of them, I know them, they were not Pakistani. They were Indians or Kashmiri. They identified Telugu. Why do I like? Of course, I tried and I've challenged whoever that gay for Jammu and Kashmir because they were completely not queer. You know, even if they were gay, I refuse to believe they were even gay. Right? I've challenged that they could come even in mask and have a discussion. Because imagine you have a complete siege over territory. Whether you're straight or gay, you're crushed. So even if, so the argument is somehow India controlling Kashmir is gay friendly does not hold true because regardless of our identity, be you Muslim or Hindu or Sikh, you are straight or gay, you're all under siege. But they presented. Now this pink washing, that happens here in the West, not in India. Well, of course, in India, the Hindu writing is homophobic. So there they will not say, oh, we have protected the gay people. It's in the UK and US where they think that this will sell and make the cause more progressive that they're doing it, right? Of course, and this may remind you, and some of you may not know where this is from. This is from Hakan's Facebook cover page. The point is, if these are, they're not gay, I said, not gay as in happy, but queer as in fuck your public sensitivities. So important thing is, even if it doesn't matter they're gay or not, the identity is not important for me, is the politics is anti-queer. The moment you justify violence and dehumanization of collective, it's unqueer. And this is what we need, of course, is queer sensitivities rather than anything else, right? It does require, I'm just using the thing, queer affirmation. That depends on what you have. We need to be open. When I say open, not about identity, I mean open about politics. We need to be open about politics. We need to decolonize. That has to be at the heart of it, right? Decolonize is part and parcel. We need to be not tolerant. Fascists will not tolerate us. We should not tolerate fascism. I do not believe in let's sit together, be happy, you know, that there's a certain kind of, I say, quasi-wishy-washy liberal approach that we should talk to everyone. Yes, we should talk to everyone, but we should also shut down at everyone and not provide a platform when it's relevant, right? Intolerance. So whether it's Erdogan kind of politics, Trump or Modi or Xi Jinping, I call him Shitler. Some people call him Shitler, by the way, like Xi Jinping, Hitler, right? If you're loving China, this is your problem, not my problem, is we need to be intolerant of fashion. That's very important. We need to be fighting for, as queer politics and those who believe in it, justice and freedom. I have see the methodology part. Why I'm saying my own research is not based on reading. What I have been doing, in fact, I spend a lot of time in Kashmir whenever I can. It's not a field work. Partly because I cannot do research in Kashmir. You know why? Because I have a British passport and an Indian visa, and visa doesn't allow me to do research. I can't do research. So I just go, sit, and talk to people. And that provides me in a way with better understanding because I have no notes. So even when I get questioned, there's no notes. It's everything is here. I just observe, right? So justice and freedom. So it's important that we do it. So I would say queer politics is essentially connected to idea of justice and freedom. Queer politics is also about compassion. We need to be aware that constant questioning, constant fight will burn us out. So self-care is crucial. It's important that we take care of ourselves. We love ourselves and love each other. I know you say it's a wishy-washy thing, but it's important. I do believe in self-care because other care doesn't work. And you need to believe in self-care because when you, whatever you do, if you believe in justice, freedom, and have solidarity with movements like that, you will get used to all kinds of abuses, if not threats and death. So someone like privileged like me will not get, well, I get death threats, so far I have not been killed, otherwise I have not been here, right? But these are common things. Come to Kashmir, you motherfucker, I will fuck your sister, blah, 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 whatever, right? You son of a victims of ISIS. I mean, the rape fantasy, the violent misogynist fantasy they have, and still, by the way, though I can't be more queer on Facebook and Twitter, and yet most of the abuses are against women relatives, and sometimes my imaginary wife, right? Because even though I'm queer, then sometimes, oh, if you're queer, then something happens, but it's still around women. So this is where, if I get 1,000 abuses, what those who identify women get, 10,000, 100,000, right? It's important to note that. So it is important that we have solidarity freedom, and my own sense is not only in Kashmir. In fact, I came to Kashmir via Tibet. solidarity with Tibet or Palestine or Kurdistan and whatever it is, it's important that we speak, we use our own body, we use our own privilege, we use position to question whenever we can. It's important to have solidarity with resistance, this from Kashmir, because in a way our role is to amplify the voice and be in solidarity, to support freedom. And Parveena Angar, I gave her name, she's the person here, I think, and she's the person here. She's someone, on 18th August 1990, her son was disappeared by Indian state. She has all the records of who disappeared, 3 particular officials. She went to the court and still not, there's no permission. She's stuck, right? Now you can say, why does she go? How long can she go on court? She can still go on court. Now she's someone who I call her my Kashmir mother. She has come to England a couple of times. Next time I come here, I'll make sure that she also comes to Cambridge, right? It's important that you listen to her. Now she's someone, points out and say, when I think of all the problems and everything, methodology, questions, I think of theoretical questions, I think of her. Now I'm not saying I'm an anti-theory, I'm not at all, I theorize a lot. But I do believe that our research, when we do queer politics and queer identity, has to make sense to, or at least understand, or at least amplify voices such as hers. That's important for us to do, right? So it's important that we remain queer in all of the forms, and also support freedom and justice everywhere. Thank you very much.